Welcome to the Real CP Show. I am your host, CP. And today's topic: how will or is artificial intelligence affecting college professors, students, or college students, teachers, that also can be in high school, etc., and college enrollment future. What is the college enrollment future looking like on that? Now, this is just a topic that just kind of came across my mindset because, the question is that, how still beneficial is going to college in this early 21st century? Is this something that is still a worthy cause to look forward to? Now, of course, some people say on one side, of course, and some other personnel say, well, maybe not as much as before, right? But the question is again relating to artificial intelligence: is this something that is going to hamper more college students and studying, or will it assist more college students with their work, right? So let me go ahead and share my screen on this situation. It's going to be a real short show on that. This is a quick article, talks about how artificial intelligence is reshaping college for students and professors. I just want to sit there and just play just a little bit of this particular video. I'm utilizing this under fair usage doctrine.
Senior class at universities across the country is the first to have spent nearly its entire college career in the age of generative AI, a type of artificial intelligence that can create new content like text and images. As the technology improves, it's harder to distinguish from human work, and it's shaking academia to its core with some very big questions. Special correspondent Fred DeSam Lazaro has the story for our series, Rethinking College.
And the principle of humanities says, treat all people as ends in themselves, never merely as means.
About 2 years ago, Megan Fritz, a philosophy professor at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, began spotting something unusual about her students' writing.
You suddenly get an essay or a test answer, some kind of assignment from a student whose normal writing you're familiar with, and you get something back that sort of sounds like an official business document or a piece of technical writing that sounds very highly polished, but very impersonal.
Impersonal because it likely wasn't written by a person. This was the beginning of a turning point for higher ed, as generative AI had swept through not only her campus, but college campuses across the country. A survey last year found that 86% of college students are now using AI tools like ChatGPT, Claude AI, and Google Gemini for schoolwork. The reason generative AI has spread so quickly on college campuses is not hard to understand. It's transformed tasks that used to take hours, even days of writing and revision into something that can be done in mere minutes. For example, I can ask ChatGPT, write me a 1,000-word essay on the topic of, is it okay to lie? And using a massive amount of data, it predicts and generates sentences on this topic instantly. Fritz says the impact has been deeply disruptive.
If I'm reading the writings of ChatGPT, and instead of my students, I have lost the very best tool that I have to see if I am being effective in my capacity as an instructor or not.
We really need a framework in which people can use these things and innovate while minimizing the risk.
University policymakers have scrambled to stay ahead.
I think the realization over the past year and a half is the technology is outpacing our ability to detect it.
Vice Provost of Research Brian Berry leads one of UA Little Rock's committees tasked with creating clear campus-wide policies on AI.
I think it really comes down to us helping students understand what's at risk, helping them understand that if they use AI in the right way, it's literally the most powerful tool that they've ever been able to use, and it will make huge differences. But if they use it in the wrong way, it could short circuit their learning process.
Well, so you get the point of some of the stuff they was talking about. Is there a concern about on college campuses and different things like that, including high school, right? 'Cause, those are the last 4 years or overall, right, of that particular students that educational level before they have to start making decisions, or other ones depending on how what socioeconomical backgrounds, et cetera, thought pattern, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes should be started long before that, before they get to high school, if they're going to go to college or not. But let's just say high school, regardless, and they're trying to figure out if they want to go to college or if they want to go to the military or vocationary studies, et cetera, et cetera. But again, relating to this topic, will artificial intelligence, or is it going to affect basically college students, professors, and things like that? So that is a question also that should be thought about on that. I'm like, okay, all right, on that. So what I want to do, let me. I was not going to do this for a second, but let me just. They brought up Chat GBT. Let me just go to Chat GBT for a second, and I'm gonna play one. Well, I'm gonna read one particular other article relating to college enrollment and what might happen or what might not happen with college enrollment in the future. So let's just go with this for a second. Chat GBT relating to the same kind of question in the story or this topic. Make sure you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Everything's coming through fine on my side. Let me know if you need anything adjusted.
Well, actually, I just wanted to ask your thought patterns. Right now, you also being a type of artificial intelligence, but again, you have bad and good, whatever it is. That's not the concept relating to yourself. My question to you is that what has been your overall consensus? Will or is artificial intelligence something of concern for college students and professors?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really depends on the context. For college students, AI can be a huge asset, like helping with research, writing, learning new skills, but it also raises concerns about things like academic integrity, over reliance, or even just keeping up with how fast it changes. And for professors, I think it's a mixed bag too. It can help streamline tasks, but also requires them to rethink assessment methods and how they engage with students. So, definitely a nuanced issue.
So, do you think that certain numbers of students might look upon certain college professors as, well, some of them need to get with the times on artificial intelligence?
Yeah, absolutely. I think some students might see that, especially if a professor is a bit resistant or slow to adopt new tools. And on the flip side, some students might really value professors who integrate AI thoughtfully because it kind of mirrors the real world skills they need. So, yeah, there's definitely a shift happening in how students perceive that dynamic.
Okay, then. All right. That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Of course, I'm glad I could help. If anything else pops up or you just want to bounce around some ideas, I'm here for it.
All right. So, just kind of want to get ChatGPT's thought pattern on that particular part. All right. So, my last screen that wanted to share on this is about the college enrollment. Is it going to continue or is it going to dwindle in general? Of course, this is a very broad topic, but just kind of want to relay this over relating to this particular topic and or this particular article that came across. As you can see this, it says today's May 11, 2026. A looming demographic cliff, fewer college students, and ultimately fewer graduates. All right. Article is January 8, 2025 article. This one talks about pickup trucks with trailers and cars with yawning trucks pulled up into unattended lawns in front of buildings from which people lug books, furniture, mattresses, trophy cases, and artwork. I'm gonna skip a little bit of that. This was the unceremonious end of our Westland University, a 181-year institution that closed in 2023 after financial losses due in part to discounts it gave out as it struggled to attract a shrinking pool of students. what's interesting, they didn't talk about which demographics that happen, because that's in Iowa, so you're not going to have a lot of Black American students. But so you best believe there's not going to be no affirmative action. You know, all that little silly little jacoconess of nonsensical terminology, how people love utilizing that affirmative action, but affirmative action had nothing to do with Black Americans. It helped benefit all these other different groups of people, and et cetera, different whole topic on that. When the college closes, all the things that are mementos of the best 4 years of a lot of people's lives are sold to the highest bidder, said such and such person, found a part of this firm that has helped handle the logistics of shutting down 4 colleges in the last few years, including all Wesleyan. Skip a little bit. A demographic cliff with big implications for the economy. This demographical cliff has been predicted ever since Americans started having fewer babies at the vent of the recession around the end of 2007, a falling birth rate that has not recovered since, except for a slight blip after the C-19 pandemic, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Demographers say it will finally arrive nationwide in the fall of this year. That's when recruiting efforts will begin to confront the long anticipated drop off in the number of applicants from among the next class of high school seniors, But the downturn isn't just a problem for universities and colleges. It's a looming crisis for the economy. With fewer graduates eventually coming through the pipeline to fill jobs that require college education, even as international rivals increase their proportion of their population with degrees. See, that's the whole, they go past it real fast. How does a competition with international rivals, foreign students, how is that going to look in the future? Right? Competition is competition. Some people coming over here with certain type of artificial loyalty thought patterns. Some people coming over with a type of humble thought patterns and just like to maybe go some colleges and get some type of education. There are some people within Americanism, students that are lazy. We ain't talking about Black Americans, by the way, because Black Americans are not the college demographical main personnel. You don't want to talk about that. And there are certain numbers of other Americanism students that are not lazy, right? So there's all kind of dynamics in there. Now, with the advent of all this social media-ness left and right, that's a whole different topic. Is that being disastrous for more people sticking their 2 eyeballs, right? Unless something's going on 1 eyeball, and they're just sticking their eyeballs on their little smartphones or other little tablets or whatever it is, or laptops, or some people still have computers. Is it too? But most time, computers and laptops, people kind of laughing at a little bit more because looking at their phone is smartphone is the dynamics of their communications, right? And either that's disastrous eventually, or that's pseudo disastrous, or that's just the way that situation goes, and it's productive, depending on how you look at that. The impact of this economic decline, such person director of such and such University Center of Education and the Workforce says bluntly, as fresh data emerges, the outlook is getting only worse. An analysis by the higher education consulting firm such and such, using the latest available census figures, now projects another drop in the number of 18-year-old beginning in 2033. After a brief uptick by 2039, this estimate shows there will likely be 650,000 or 15% fewer of them per year than there are now. These findings sync up with another new report released in December by the such and such entity for higher education entity, which says that the number of 18-year-olds nationwide who graduate from high school each year and are therefore candidates for college will erode by 13%, or nearly 500,000 by 2041. So there's all kind of dynamics in that situation. A few 100,000 per year might not sound like a lot, according to this particular person says, but multiply that by a decade and it has a big impact, right? Now, on the flip side, hold on, let me see something here. This comes after college and universities already collectively experienced a 15% decline in enrollment between 2010 and 2021, the most recent year for which figures are available, according to the National Center for Education and Statistics, National Center for Education Statistics. That includes a drop off of more than 350,000 during the first year of the pandemic alone, and it means there are already 2.7 million fewer students than there were at the start of the last decade. So again, there's some flip side, because then a little bit down here a little bit, I think it says something about hold on. Okay, let me see. I must pass that one. A host of complex demographical factors. It's kind of a remarkable moment in our history. It says such and such person. That's not important. The person. We have a lot of people moving from economic producers to economic consumers, and there just aren't enough people coming up behind them to replace them. The falling number of 18-year-olds is compounded by other issues, including a sharp drop in the proportion of Americans in the labor market, particularly baby boomers who retire early and men derailed by substance abuse and incarceration. You see this nonsensical caca-chaka nonsense deflection. Now we want to talk about men being derailed by substance abuse and incarceration. Notice how they're not talking about whom are they talking about. They're not talking about Black Americans, men, right? Because then you start getting into a whole can of super worms, right? You start saying, wait a minute now, how many of those type of men have been found? They were none guilty, and they brought up on knucklehead type charging. And who was the number one men in America who have been exonerated by when they were locked up in prison? Oh, they don't talk about that. Black American men, who are still the people out there who show the most, the system shows the most oppression, discriminatory, left, right, showcase in some kind of bad way, but they make sure not to do anything overall to assist in getting true reparational, especially toward Black American men. They don't want to talk about that, but they help all these other different cultures and backgrounds get resources. I'm going somewhere totally different. But it's interesting how they talk about that part, how they just try to exclude men related to the problem. You saw that game. You got to watch people on that situation, on that. The proportion of men 20 and older in the workforce has declined from around 76% at the start of the Great Recession to around 70% today. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports. Again, it's a very offensive how people love trying to sit there and play this little dagakanas of insulting toward males. Now, they ain't going to talk about how many numbers of programs that specifically geared toward women, how many numbers of grants, how many numbers of colleges specifically go toward women. You get the point, right? They don't want to talk about that part. You understand? And then what do you hear a lot of times? Certain numbers of women once applies to. We hear about, oh my goodness, college debt. No one made that person go to that college, right? But there are certain numbers within certain feminist groups, especially, and System of Chaos members. They go there, take up various situations, hint, gender studies, right? How many they talking about feminist agenda, anti-male agenda, right? And they get a bachelor's degree in that. You're like, what are you going to do with that? Right? And some other type of degrees, which is a whole different topic in itself. What type of degree are you going to get? Especially with the thing with artificial intelligence, right? On that situation. But notice that, see, if men complain about that, they say, oh my God, they're always complaining. Interesting on the flip side, feminists, Sister of Chaos members, they get tens of thousands college debt, complain, oh my goodness, we need help. Do you understand? And you don't have people jump up down and say, oh my goodness, grow up. You made a decision to get that college debt. A whole different topic in itself, right? So feminists, Sister of Chaos, they play both sides, right? And they know not enough males stand up and say they've had about enough of that one-sided rhetoric on that, right? Blaming men for all kinds of stuff going on. toxic masculinity, but they never talk about toxic toxic matriarchy, right? Don't talk about that part. You understand? Toxic feminism. They don't talk about that. Do you understand? But those are different topics in itself. So this is something I just kind of want to bring up. But there was another type. There was something else on this, or maybe it was another article, but they would say on the flip side, well, there's some things that are improving, et cetera, but however go on that, right? But this is something I just kind of wanted to relay over on this particular part. So that's all I wanted to relay over. I thank you for tuning in to the Real CP Show.